Hi, I've been going through the forums recently and I see a lot of people posting comments that they're starting to get into stacking. And I see a lot of people also posting saying that, oh, they're kind of like suffering from FOMO and they went in hard and they bought like 30 ounces. I saw a guy on YouTube, he doesn't have a lot of views, but if I counted, he brought nearly 32 grand worth of gold in one day. That was insane. Okay. Um, yeah, that is possibly somebody's life savings all into precious metals. Now, I can understand. I can understand why people are suffering from anxiety because of the health situation, because of the economic situation, and because of the overall global situation and all the tensions between different countries. But you can't forget that despite everything, precious metals, while it is a relatively safe place to put your money, it has volatility. It goes up and down. There was a time when silver was $11. It can still go back to $11. It can go under $11, right? Gold, there were times where, like years ago, gold was, before the jump, it was in the $1,000 range per ounce. And then now it's the 1,800 and people are trying to pump it to 2,000 plus per ounce. That is not healthy. Maybe it will go up to $2,000 an ounce. I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. But what I can say is, if you are stacking too hard and you are going in all in very quickly, you run the risk of getting burned when the winds go against you. And today I'm going to teach you something that will help you protect yourself from an eventual downturn in precious metals. And it is a very, very simple tool. It involves two things. One, that you make a budget, and two, that you have some discipline on your purchasing habit. Now, when I say it, it sounds very simple, but but getting yourself control of yourself and your purchasing habits is probably the hardest thing anybody can do. And the best way to get in control is to have visibility over your money. Especially now we live in sort of a paperless money world where, you have your bank account, there's a number on it, and you go and you buy stuff, you can use a card and you just swipe it and suddenly poof, you have stuff in front of you. That's awesome. When you get robbed, you don't lose cash immediately. You can call your bank, they block your cards and so on. It's a pain in the ass, but you keep your number. But what also happens is people don't realize is that they consume a lot more when they don't have physical spending. If you're spending a physical thing, actually people tend to spend, I think they did research, it was around 20 to 30% less if they use cash compared to credit cards, debit cards, or any type of digital currency. So what do you need to do to get your spending under control? And how do you practice that and then get an excess in cash flow? And then use that excess in cash flow and buy silver in a disciplined way that prevents you from getting burned very hard in case of an eventual downturn in precious metals. The tool to do that, the whole thing altogether, is called cost averaging. And how does it work? Well, first of all, you need to determine how much spare cash you have at the end of the month. And what I have here is a very simplified budget. And I base this budget based upon my personal experience when I first started working at my first job. Almost, sorry, I have to beep that out, I swear. Almost 10 years ago. At my first job, this was Swiss francs, so it's roughly $3,200. We're going to do a one-to-one conversion. It's right now, because of volatility in the American markets, it's not one-to-one anymore. Swiss franc is a safe haven, relative safe haven assets. In times of normal times, it sticks quite close to the dollar as a one-to-one exchange. And when you have more volatility in the American markets, you have a growth in Swiss franc in terms relative to the dollar. So I would say right now, 3,200, you can change this to dollar. It's roughly the same. So for rent, I was paying at the time the currency was 1-to-1. I was paying around $650 for my rent, and I was sharing my flat with somebody else, so my utility bills were a bit cheaper. So I was paying $675 for rent and utility and heating and just to live. This is essentials. Then I needed telephone and internet. And within here, I had a plan, I think. I paid a bit less than 49, but because through the work, I could get it cheaper. I think it was 29. But this is what you pay if you don't have that perk from your work. Food, care, products. This is all your basic living essentials. It includes groceries, soap, shampoo, basic clothing needs for summer and winter, and potentially, I also included in here, I bought a cheap laptop for work and to watch YouTube videos. You can buy a cheap laptop, like you would change your laptop maybe once every single 2 years, and I would buy a basic netbook. I don't know if you still can find those. Netbooks are relatively cheap. You could find them for around $350, $250. They were shitty computers. You couldn't really game on them. I tried gaming. I tried playing Dota on it. It kind of worked. It was really terrible experience. I have a much better computer now. Health insurance, $250 a month. In Switzerland, this is obligatory. You have to pay health insurance. I was still under a sort of semi-student plan. Now, if you're working, and you're an adult and you have a full-time job, you would expect to pay around $350. But then when I was starting out, it was $250. It would change a little bit here if you're earning this and you're no longer under 26, I think. You're a bit older, it will be closer to $300 to $350. Car. So I put this in, I didn't have a car. I actually had all my transportation costs covered by work. But if you don't have that perk, you can expect to pay a lease, and then inside the lease, you would have some sort of insurance plan with it, and you're not getting a nice car. You're getting a really like low end, something that can run a small car, a city car with and fuel in this per month, $230. It will not be a great car. You will not impress anybody with your car, but it will get you to places from A to B. It'll do the job. And bus and train. What I had at the time was I had actually no car and I had a full on bus and train, but the bus and train was paid by work. So this was around, I think in total, I was $300 a month for just this. But that was covered all by work, and I was getting this amount per month in my gross salary. And then you make a budget for your leisure and holiday. So this is what I would say a reserve, a holiday reserve. And instead of, let's say, you're saying, oh, I'm gonna spend $5 here, $5 there, you should make a holiday reserve account and then put it aside and put money into it. And anytime you go out, anytime you try to, you want to go on holidays, it all comes from that single account. And that single account will help you track how much you're spending, right? With $250 a month, I have choices. I mean, I can either choose to not go anywhere that month and save up, and so next month I have 500, and maybe I can do a small road trip to somewhere and stay in a hostel with some friends, and then we can go out and visit a new city in Eastern Europe, or so on. Or I could choose to go out maybe twice a month, and then I would spend $125. We can go with $125 even in Switzerland. You can go to a decent restaurant and then you can get a few beers afterwards. This is very possible. You can't go out every single night, I'm saying, but you're not depriving yourself of any social activity. The whole point of this is to be frugal, but not to be a hermit. Like they say, it doesn't help, because if you're too frugal, what I've learned is that it backfires, and then you have no social life. You feel completely depressed about it, and it's very isolating. But reducing the amount you spend and deciding to only spend quality time with people you like and friends is very healthy. And then I decided to make some tax reserves for, I always kept a bit extra in case I had like more taxes or maybe less taxes. I just wouldn't spend it. And it would sort of be a secondary emergency fund if I didn't have any spare cash lying around. In Switzerland, they're quite lax on taxes in that it's not a criminal offense if you like make a mistake on your taxes. Like in the US, it's much more chill, but you do have to pay your taxes. It's usually, it happens once a year, or you have to make reserves for it and you pay every single month. You can come to a plan with the tax office. But if you take all of this into account and you take in the income, you have in red the absolute amount you need to live. Like this was the absolute, I needed at least 1,175. So I would say 2,000 Swiss francs a month to live, to cover all my basic living expenses with a little bit of margin. I mean, ultimately, if things were really bad and I really needed like the $250 here, I could forego it for a month, 2 months. You know, it wouldn't be too terrible. But it also meant that even doing all of this, I could still have some money left over. Now, I'm not saying that everybody's gonna make 3,200 in their first job. Some people won't. Some people will make much more. Some people will make much less. Some people might just make 2,000 and then they won't have this extra amount. But I think 3,200 Swiss francs or $3,200 is a relatively accessible amount that most people can relate to. And you know, I'm not putting here my current pay because it is a hell lot more than that. It's like, yeah, it's a hell lot more than that. And it means that I can definitely do more things. That's what money gives you, the power to do more things. You can choose to invest it, you can choose to go on vacation, you can choose to buy cars, you can choose to buy presents, you can choose to help out family. It allows you to do more things. But even in the scenario where I was just starting out to work with a very relatable salary to the majority of people, that they can understand that this is a feasible amount, I could still have extra by budgeting an extra cash flow of 1,226 Swiss francs, or roughly $1,226. It would be more today. It would be more like $1,300 if it was in today's exchange rate. But at that time, it was 1,200 roughly dollars. Now, how do you cost average $1,200 to stack? We're starting off with this budget as the way we want to stack. What I would suggest is if you have this much money, in terms of cost averaging, you don't want to go all in with that. Even if you are like, oh, but all my basic living expenses are covered. Yes, but what if you have an accident, right? This insurance that I have here, it will probably cover only partially your full accident amount, or you get sick, you catch an illness. It won't cover part of it. You're saving, like you're putting into your insurance, it'll cover maybe up to 2,000 that month for the first part that you have to pay 2,000 and the rest is covered by insurance. So this part, you still have to put a bit aside. And the amount you have to put aside, I say, is half of it. You're like, okay, why are you saying I have to put half of it aside? Because if you have $600, right? This is emergency saving or contributions to your retirement fund. If you don't use that by the end of the year, put it into your retirement fund. If you do have to use it, you don't have to dip elsewhere and make cuts elsewhere in order to meet your immediate needs. It's a safety net. Now you're like, but I could go all in into silver. Silver is relatively liquid. Yes, but if you went in with $1,200 of silver and you try to sell physical silver within that same month, you're going to take a 20% haircut. So don't do it. This is just being wise and taking $600 out of your net free cash flow and saying, okay, I'm putting it to the side. I'm not going to spend it right now. And if I do spend it at the end of the year, if I haven't spent it at the end of the year, I can use it and put it into like a government-funded retirement plan. Typically, with those plans, you can deduct it from your taxes. So suddenly your tax reserves go down and you have a little bit more money for your retirement, which is good. And in case you want to use it, sometimes they allow you to buy property much later on down the road with that saving. So it's a very good plan. Now, if you have $600 left in order to invest into silver, right, to stack, what actually that represents is less than 5% of your total gross income. This is what I'm trying to say. Every single month, instead of saying I make 3,500, I go all in. You're going in with a little bit and you put a little bit of cash on the side, right? So if today's silver, let's say we are back in a month and a half ago, and you just started working, and then you say, okay, I want to start stacking silver. You buy silver at $30 an ounce, right? Physical silver. At $600, what can you buy? Well, at $600, you can buy roughly 10 ounces of, 10 ounces, I'll put some more out. I've got 4 more of these bars anyways. 10 ounces of these bars. And last one. Let's get this out of the box. Okay. Yeah. You can buy 10 ounces of silver. Would that be a bad choice? No. But what will happen next is, imagine what happened next was that silver goes down to $22, right? And at $22, you're not making any money. You've taken a haircut of $8 on each piece of silver that you have there. And we are currently, I think we're at $24. So now you've taken a $6 haircut on every single piece. So you're like, yeah, but that doesn't matter. But imagine this, you don't know what happens the next month. You don't know where the market will move the next month. You don't know what will happen to you the next month. This is uncertainty. You have to understand uncertainty. Is that it's not just where the markets will be, it's also where will you be the next month. If, imagine, you're in this situation, right? You got laid off because of the health situation. And you went all in on silver for that amount, for 1,226, right? And you got laid off in the middle month, so you only made half of that. And potentially, they were going to reopen the next month. And you might be able to find a job that pays you roughly the same amount as that. If you went in all on silver, what will happen here? You will get maybe at 22, let's say we're optimistic, we're $22, you'll get how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Out of this amount, you will get $220 out of it. And if you bought 20 ounces of this stuff, you would have gotten $440. But you would also have $600 of spare cash on the side, which means that you could probably meet rent without selling much of your silver. If you had to pay rent, if there's a rent freeze, maybe not, but you have a bare spare cash to buy groceries. Then you have hair, food, and you still need to eat. You're not a bar of silver that just stays in your safe. You have to actually eat. You have fixed costs every single month. So that's why it's important to at least have some spare cash in case that the market moves and your situation changes. But what it also happens is, let's say in this case, we go to the scenario where you went all in on your whole, like you're saying, okay, I have this much is what I need to spend. And you say like, okay, I don't need leisure and a holiday. So you take that off the table. Okay. Tax return, yes, at the end of the year, I take that off. You're adding another $400 onto this pile. And then you're like, okay, I'm gonna forego insurance. Okay, I'm gonna eat a bit less. And suddenly you're adding, let's say, another $400 into this pile. So all of a sudden you've added close to $2,000 here, right? And you're living on about $1,200. It's doable. You're not having a very fun time, but it's doable. Okay. You go all in on silver because you fear that you've missed out on the silver trend. You buy $1,200 worth of silver and gold. And silver and gold the next month takes a dive and you get laid off. What happens then? You're going to be a shitty time. You're probably going to have to liquidate all of your positions. If you bought at the highest point, let's say 3 months ago, or 2 months ago, I think, yeah. You bought 20 ounces of silver for $600, so you bought 40 ounces of silver. That would be 1,200. If you bought 40 ounces and you buy 40 more ounces, so you will be at you still have $800 left. $800, you have another 20 ounces at least, and then you also have $200 left, and then you will buy 66 ounces of silver. So let's say you buy 66 ounces of silver last month because you felt you missed out on the train and just like cut back on your basic living expenses because you saw on YouTube that people are saying, yeah, you shouldn't buy Starbucks, cut back on living expenses, and it's gonna make you rich, put it into vegetables, but then you get laid off and you have no cash flow. And you need to meet like basic food requirements. You have to eat. I mean, you're at a certain point, you can't cut this. I'm put here. I mean, I was budget shopping at that time, and it wasn't even during times where there were shortages. If there's a shortage, you know, you want to take a shit. I'm sorry, I'm gonna have to cut that. You want to go to the bathroom and you want to like poo. Your toilet paper costs more now. It's just like, that's just the situation. So if you had a bit of a cash flow, you wouldn't have had to take a haircut on the short term. If you did go all in and you realize that you need to buy some basic necessities, then yeah, you're gonna have to liquidate. If you liquidated at $22 on 63 ounces of silver, you lost $8 per ounce. 8 times 6 is what? 8 times 6 is 48. So you would have lost $480, and then 3 ounces you would have lost an extra 24, so you would have lost $500, $504. So yeah, you would have lost $504, and you would barely meet your living expenses because you're going to have to spend the remaining money anyways. You would have $1,500, and you would barely be able to meet your living expenditures, which means that you will have no silver and no cash left over. So that's what I'm trying to say. By going in less, you could actually have more in the end if things go south, right? What I do, you're like, but you're buying a shit ton. Yeah, but I don't make 3,200 anymore. And I don't make it off. I do have a very well-paying job. I can't lie about that. And I make more than 3 times this amount every single month. A little bit less than that, but roughly that. I'm not going to tell exactly. And on the side, I make cash reserves. If I had to tell you how much cash reserve I have over 50,000 in cash reserves right now. And you're like, you have 50,000 cash reserve and you haven't gone all in silver? Yeah, I haven't gone all in silver because I know that in this current situation, I have 50,000 of untouched cash reserve on a separate bank, not on my main bank. And in my main bank, in my savings account, I put aside another 20,000 in cash reserves. You know, and you're like, oh, that makes sense. I'm going in less than 1%, and I'm cost averaging. I'm buying not all of my gold and silver in one go. I'm buying it slowly, piece by piece. And even right now, even though I bought, I think the last 2 months, I've been buying $1,500 worth of silver per month. I feel like I'm going a bit fast and I'm cutting back. I'm gonna cut back and start buying a little bit more gold to balance out my stack and make things a bit more even, because silver is a little bit more too volatile. Like, I don't like having too much of a volatile asset, and I try to hedge it against some less volatile currencies. And gold is a much less volatile material relative to silver, so I'm buying a lot more fractional gold at lower premiums. Because right now there's a lot of fear, it means that you are not thinking rationally. If you thought rationally, making sure that you have enough cash reserves should be your top priority, and with spare cash, you buy a little bit at the current market price with lower premiums, so that in case, you know, the market does turn south, you are not completely burnt by the situation. And if it does go north, right, you're still gonna make money. It's just about being like, having greed and fear take over how you think, how you're going to put your money away, and how you're gonna store your money. Fundamentally, here's what I think. Fundamentally, storing your part of your money, right, your currency in gold and silver is good. Nobody's gonna tell you it's good. But if you told people that you're actually not eating and you're cutting corners, try and stack this because you're suddenly scared that you've missed out on the boat, they'll tell you you're not behaving rationally. You need to think about it, and you have to realize that you, as a human being, you're not a bar of gold, and you have fixed costs. You have food and care product needs. You will have friends who will want to go out and you want to socialize with them. You have to go to a place. You have to go to work. You can't, if you want to make more money, you need at least this invested in your transportation to go to your place of work and come back. You need this over your roof, right? You need a roof over your head so you can sleep at night when you come back from work. You can't cut a lot of these things. There's not much room to cut. You can have extra cash flow at the end of the month if you are disciplined, you follow a plan. But don't go all in. Don't let fear take over, and and just realize that, you can't predict whatever's going to happen. So just go in little bit by little, keep reserves on the side. I'm telling people, like, if you want to ask me now, I'm not telling how much I earn, but I decided to put quite a few months worth of cash flow on the side. I think people are like, yeah, you need 3 months. I'm gonna say you're gonna go much longer than that because it's really uncertain. If things become more certain, like we have more stability, and you do have that free cash flow there, it's not lost. You haven't lost your cash. Inflation is 2% per year, what they're trying to aim. If they go to hyperinflation, even if they go to 10% per year, you took what, 6 months of 10% inflation. You've lost maybe on $100,000, $5,000. But if you take a dive from $30 to $22, that's not a $5,000 loss. That's a, what is it? That's what? That is over 20, 30. Yeah, that's close to 30%. So you would have lost almost 30K if you all went in the short term and suddenly you need to buy food or pay rent. This is what people don't realize, is that you can't go all in things. It's not a game of poker, where you're playing with a sponsor. Like, you look at it, the thing is, if you look at television and how people portray investments, and you look at Dragon's Den or what, a Shark Tank, and people seem to be going all in. First of all, remember, the guys who are in it, it's a TV show. The second part is the people who are making the deals, they have a lot of cash flow. They have a lot of spare cash, and they're on a level of spare cash that allows them to take extreme amounts of risk. That if you're making this much, you do not have that margin of error. You will have this margin, and out of that, I would even suggest that you only use half of it to put into a very safe asset, right? This is not the most exciting thing. It's not like I'm saying, oh yeah, it's a BTC. I'll do another video of BTC, why I think if you're investing a lot into Bitcoin, you need to take a step back and think a little bit about what you're doing, and maybe realize that, Bitcoin actually, there's a lot of misinformation about it, and people don't realize what they're doing. One of the things that really irks me is that people say that Bitcoin has a fixed supply. Yes, it does. The main source code has a fixed supply, but that doesn't stop people from forking the currency. You're like, wait, what? What do you mean by forking? So you have to understand that Bitcoin, the code it's like there, and you can branch it. That's like quantitative easing. You can increase the total amount of cryptocurrency by 20-30% just because one group doesn't agree with another. If I told you that, you're like, oh, really? Yeah. And also, what if I told you, like, Bitcoin's not anonymous? Like, transactions you made 20 years ago, they're publicly available. So it means that if you're a guy who bought marijuana online with Bitcoin, and that drug dealer gets busted and his wallet address is discovered, and you've used your wallet today, to go onto Coinbase or to go and buy groceries or to order your computer online, well, that's traceable. They know your address now, and they know you bought weed from a dude or you gave money to a dude for something that's not like legal 10 years ago, you know, like, or 5 years ago. It's not anonymous Bitcoin. There's some anonymous cryptocurrencies, but then if we all move, I'll talk more in a different video about how, you know, crypto is not what people it's promised to be. And if you're a bit smart about it, you would realize that it's actually very different from precious metals. So remember this, don't let fear overtake you. Remember just to go in little bit by little, that's cost averaging. And over time, so every single month you're gonna get this amount, you're gonna buy a little, you're gonna buy a little. Over the year, you realize that, you know, you have some highs, some lows. Sometimes you bought low and it went high. Sometimes it went low, it went high, you bought low. But overall, the total amount of value this tends to go up relatively like 1-2% maybe a year, maybe zero, but it will relatively stick to inflation. And that's cost averaging. That's the way you can actually save in this type of asset over the long term. You could ask me, do I think this is a way you're gonna make like 20x return? No, don't think like that. There are ways to make 20x returns. They involve taking a lot of risk. It involves taking some leverage. I can say I've made some deals that do make 20x returns, but I can tell you that I was so fucking stressed when I'm gonna have to beep a lot of this out. Yeah, I was stressed when that happened. It was not a fun situation to be in, and until it closed. So now it's still going on, the deal, but it's like the light is at the end of the tunnel, and I realized okay, I'm in a good position. I'm gonna make a nice profit, and yeah, but yeah, I mean, there is a really like terrible economic situation. There's a terrible health situation. People are scared. It's understandable. It's normal to be scared. You know, this is something unprecedented, but you can't let that overtake you and just impulse, maybe not impulse buy, but fear buy into precious metals. That will get you burnt. I'm not saying that precious metal in the very long term won't, but if in the short term you're putting into jeopardy your basic living needs and your obligations in order to jump into this, or you're putting yourself at a risk of, let's say you're at right now, the reality is we're all at a risk of losing our jobs. Like, it's very possible because the pandemic, business go out of business. So you do need to put more cash on the side. You're like, yeah, but what if hyperinflation? Look, even if there is 10% inflation a year, it would take 12 months for you to lose $6, okay? It's not relatively, that's nothing. That's like nothing in terms of a downturn. You have to go up. And you're like, yeah, but hyperinflation, you know, look at Venezuela. It took Venezuela like, what, 8 years to reach the point it has been. I mean, they started the hyperinflation, the inflation position, I would say about 8 years ago. That's when it started turning around and they started getting a lot of inflation. And then at the very end, right now we're seeing the very end of the hyperinflation, the end result. But you have like 3 years to realize the situation is going to turn real shit. Right now, we're kind of in a middle turning point. We don't know how it will turn. There is an election coming on in the United States. There are two parties. Depending on who wins, situations might change. Depending on who wins Congress and so on, it becomes very complicated. Depends on how the trade war is resolved. It depends also if after these next 4 years, Trump doesn't declare himself a dictator. If he does win, and he stays for 4 years, and then he decides to use the new nominated judge to name himself president for life. So watch out for that. That could happen because now he's got a majority and he can change. And if he has a majority in Congress, and the Republicans agree to name him president or king of the United States of America for life, you can say like, oh, that might not happen, but he's made it possible. I mean, it's given a possibility. So I'm not going. I tend to look at things from a pragmatic way. I don't want to look at it from whichever party or policies. I just look at it like, is it possible? What is the scenario? Is the scenario where you know, one single person takes over the control of the American Constitution and suddenly becomes the king of the United States. And right now, it's not a, it's not a, it's not so far. It's still far, but it's no longer just like a wild like speculation. It's a possibility, but not a probability, is how I would put it. It's a possibility, but not a probability. And you have to think that, are you ready for that possibility? And how well prepared are you for that possibility, even though you can agree that it's not very probable. So that's how I like to think. That's why I'm buying about precious metals, because I don't know how the world will turn out. But I'm not putting my short-term cash obligations into jeopardy. And I'm buying a little bit at a time, and I'm not going in. I'm cost averaging things out to, first of all, not get burned, and also, like, you know, mentally, you don't want to think every single day you could lose 2% or make 2%. That's how you go crazy. So I have a bit more stuff coming in about, like, I ordered a few of these, not too many. I think I ordered 3 more of these, and 5 more ounces of silver, because I've had some good news, and I expect more cash flow to be coming in. So I decided to plunk it down and put part of it into gold and silver. So this is Dave, and thank you for watching. I did ramble on a little bit longer than usual, and there was a bit of moving around. If you like the content and you want to talk to me, ask me more questions about what do I think about cost averaging and how does it help you avoid, like, you know, spikes and drops, and avoid you getting into a financial deadlock or a bad situation, yeah, send me, write a comment in the video below, and like and subscribe. Thank you very much for watching.